This is Palehawk-2. I have the target. The war room fell completely silent. Every eye snapped to the radio, disbelief flashing across exhausted faces. The words shattered the stillness like a gunshot in the night. Impossible. Unthinkable. Palehawk-2, Cmdr, Ruth Callahan. She had vanished 2 years ago, wiped from every record after operation. Flint Echo collapsed in disaster, officially dead, forgotten. Now. Her voice pierced the darkness again. Clear, steady, a ghost refusing to be silenced. The cold, heavy air of the command center pressed down on the men and women gathered around the dimly lit table. Reports had come in, no survivors, communications lost, the mission declared dead. Older officers exchanged stunned glances. To them, Ruth was a legend, a shadow long past. The younger soldiers, unfamiliar with the name, silent, the weight of unspoken history settling like a stone. Outside, the wind howled through the barren ridges of Drymark Hollow. It carried the unforgiving bite of the wilderness. Somewhere, watching unseen Palehawk was alive, her vigil unbroken, her mission far from over. Ruth Callahan was more than a name erased from the books. She had become a ghost in her own life, stripped not only of honor, but of existence itself, after the catastrophic failure of Flint Echo. Her name vanished from every roster, every communication severed. The world moved on, as if she had never existed, but Ruth never truly disappeared. She vanished into Drymark Hollow's jagged cliffs and biting winds, a phantom cloaked in isolation and shadow, forbidden to exist, unwilling to surrender. Every crackle on forgotten military frequencies was a fragile lifeline, a tenuous thread connecting her to the unit she once called family. Amid the static and silence, memories flickered, especially one face Elias Boone, the young commander now leading the troops she had painstakingly trained. To him, Ruth was more than a mentor. She was discipline, resilience, relentless precision made flesh. But when the political storm swept through, Ruth was sacrificed, her name scrubbed from history, her contributions erased, and Elias, he remained silent. He chose to shield himself, to climb the ladder by closing his eyes to the betrayal that consumed his mentor. From afar, Ruth watched, a tempest inside her, pain laced with fury, sorrow mingled with regret. She understood the weight of silence. She knew the cost of ambition, but above all, she felt the unyielding burden of duty. Despite her exile, she owed it to the young soldiers stepping into the shadows she once bore to protect them, even if it meant becoming the unseen guardian. Her thoughts were often heavy with resolve as she whispered to herself in the biting wind, "I may have been forgotten, cast aside like a ghost, but my mission remains. I will watch over them, even from the darkness." Drymark Hollow was no longer just a refuge. It was a fortress, a purpose. The harsh landscape mirrored her own scars, both physical and unseen. Here, where few dared to tread, Ruth prepared herself, not for glory, not for recognition, but for the moment when silence would give way to action. She had accepted her fate, not as a fallen soldier, but as a sentinel. The world might have written her off, but Ruth Callahan knew the truth. A ghost never truly dies. The wind howled relentlessly through Drymark Hollow. It whipped jagged cliffs. It rattled skeletal trees, clinging stubbornly to the rocky earth. The biting cold was more than a test of endurance. It was a trial of will, a relentless adversary, just like the enemy lurking below, perched on a narrow ledge far above the valley floor. Ruth Callahan, Palehawk-2, remained as still and silent as the shadows themselves. Her sniper scope was fixed on a moving cluster of hostile soldiers, advancing through the dense underbrush 1,000 meters away. Every breath she drew was measured and slow. Mist curled and vanished quickly in the icy air. The shifting wind forced her to adjust constantly. A 12-knot gust swept across the ridge, twisting unpredictably, but Ruth's eyes were steady, trained, unyielding. Years of relentless discipline, unforgiving training. This was no ordinary shot. It was a perfect storm skill, experience, and instinct held together by sheer resolve. Her finger hovered lightly on the trigger. She keyed the radio. Her voice was calm but edged with steel. Command. This is Palehawk-2. Visual on target at 600 meters. Requesting permission to engage. The radio hissed, then silence. Only static. She knew. There would be no answer. Official channels had long ago dismissed her, erased her name, buried her in silence and political expediency. Protocol demanded she remain a ghost, a memory best forgotten. But the mission was still alive, and so was she. Ruth exhaled slowly, steadying herself against the howling wind. She remembered every moment of training, every painstaking hour spent perfecting the art of patience and precision. The faint metallic click of the bolt sliding forward resonated softly, a sound she had heard 1,000 times, but never grew tired of. Time slowed. She calculated bullet drop, wind speed, swirling gusts, factoring every variable with mechanical precision. Her heartbeat synced with the wilderness, the crack of a twig, the rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of soldiers closing in. The shot rang out like a hammer striking an anvil, sharp, final, merciless. The bullet tore through the cold air, tracing a deadly arc over the valley floor. In the command center, the target collapsed instantly. Radar confirmed the kill. Primary target neutralized. The war room fell into silence. Unnatural, thick, suffocating. Cole, Cross sat frozen, eyes wide, unblinking, caught between disbelief and dawning guilt. He knew who had fired that shot, despite being erased from every record. Ruth Callahan was still alive, and she was still protecting them. Captain Elias Boone's jaw clenched tight. The weight of the moment crushed him. The woman he had once trained under, the mentor who shaped him, was not a ghost of the past. She was real, she was present, and she was watching over them still, from the shadows. But the room was tense, heavy with doubt. Could this apparition be trusted? Was it real or a cruel deception laid by an unseen enemy? Then her voice again. Multiple hostiles advancing from the west building rooftop. I have visual confirmation. The commanders held their breath. The battlefield was a chessboard, and Ruth was the unseen queen, moving in silence, striking without warning. She defied orders, ignored protocol. She stood in defiance of the very bureaucracies that had tried to erase her. And yet here she was, their silent sentinel, guarding lives with relentless determination. The seconds stretched thin, each heartbeat a drum of impending fate. The narrow ridge was the last bastion between the soldiers below, and total annihilation. Palehawk-2 was the shield none could see, but all depended on. As enemy shadows lengthened, and the cold bit deeper, Ruth prepared for the next engagement. She was more than a sniper. She was a one-woman army, the embodiment of duty without recognition, loyalty without reward. In the command center, a young soldier whispered to himself, barely audible, she's still watching. She's still fighting. And somewhere, in the frozen wilderness of Drymark Hollow, the faintest glint of a scope caught the last rays of the dying sun, a ghost refusing to fade. The radio crackled again, breaking the stillness of the war room. It was Ruth Callahan, Palehawk-2. But it wasn't a plea, not a call for recognition, not for reconciliation. It was something else, a declaration of purpose and unwavering resolve. I'm not coming back, she said plainly. Not for them. I'm here for those still out there. The weight of her words hung heavy in the stale air. Captain Elias Boone sat silently. The realization hit deeper than any briefing ever could. Every maneuver he commanded, every strategy he deployed, was built on the foundation she had laid. He remembered vividly the countless hours in the freezing dawn at Camp Hollow Ridge, where Ruth's steely gaze and unwavering discipline had forged him into the soldier he was today. She was more than a mentor. She was the embodiment of precision and resilience, traits he had taken for granted until this moment. Colonel Cross, seated nearby, stared at the console with clenched fists. The man who had signed the order to erase her now faced the truth she never left, and his silence had cost far more than he ever admitted. I should have said something, Cross muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Remorse filled the air. But bureaucracy still choked any chance for apology. The room grew thick with unspoken regrets. Before the apology could form, Ruth's voice returned. No apologies. Save them first. Her transmission cut abrupt, leaving only an echo of unresolved tension. It was clear. This was no longer about her or about them. Her mission transcended grievance, transcended failure. She was no longer a soldier seeking validation. She was something else, a sentinel committed to the lives still in jeopardy. As silence settled over the command center, Elias leaned back, memories and reality colliding in his mind. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't demand returning. In the shadowed recesses of Drymark Hollow, Ruth watched, still, guarding. The wind whispered through the barren trees. She prepared for what lay ahead, not for glory, not for medals, but because it was the right thing to do. Her thoughts lingered on the young soldiers still trapped in the valley, unaware of the ghost who shielded them. She understood her presence was a paradox, a force of protection that refused acknowledgement. Ruth's resolve was carved from betrayal and sacrifice, tempered by an unyielding sense of duty. She had been cast aside, erased, but her spirit remained unbroken. The path she chose was solitary, but it was hers alone. In that solitude, a flicker of something softer emerged, a quiet hope that someday the shadows would part, that the truth of her sacrifice would be recognized, not through words, not through medals or ceremonies, but in the survival of those she fought to protect. As the radio fell silent, the room was left with a singular understanding. Some ghosts do not haunt out of vengeance or pain. They linger because they must, because duty never dies. The mission was over. Ruth Callahan vanished once again into the cold embrace of Drymark Hollow. She left behind only a single, simple token, a bullet, etched with the code SV-62. It rested quietly atop a weathered stone. At the edge of the ridge, a silent monument to a soldier who had chosen to fight unseen. Below, the younger soldiers prepared for their next deployment. Their voices were low, but steady. They engaged in a ritual born from whispered stories and quiet reverence. Palehawk-2. This is Bravo Team. En route, each transmission was a thread, connecting past and present, a fragile lifeline reaching out into the unknown. Within the command systems, faint signals flickered, ghosts of transmissions long thought lost, logging silent acknowledgments in the background, as if Ruth's presence still lingered, watching, guarding, a guardian spirit woven into the very fabric of their operations. Her legacy was not carved in medals or plaques, but in lives saved, in courage inspired. The soldiers carried her memory forward, not as a tale of glory, but as a testament to unwavering duty and sacrifice. As the wind swept across the ridge, carrying the echoes of battles past and yet to come, one thought remained clear. Some ghosts never die. They simply choose where to haunt. And Ruth Callahan, Palehawk-2, had chosen her place.